Hey everyone, so I've got a story that still sends chills down my spine every time I think about it. It happened a few years ago when I moved to a small town. You know, the kind quiet, almost too quiet, perfect for a fresh start, or so I thought. So I found this cute little house right across from a dilapidated one. You know, the type: overgrown weeds, peeling paint, and a sense of abandonment that just creeped me out. The first time I saw it, I brushed it off as one of those sad, forgotten places. But there was something about it that felt off. At first, it was just a backdrop for my life. I moved in, made friends with the neighbors, and settled into my new routine. But every time I glanced at that house, it felt like someone was watching me. I told myself it was just my imagination after all. Who would live in a place like that? Then one night, I was up late binge watching my favorite show, and I noticed a flicker of light from the window of the old house. It was a dim, wavering light, like a candle. I thought maybe someone had finally moved in. Curiosity got the best of me, so I pulled out my phone and snapped a quick picture. The next day, I was chatting with my neighbor Lisa and mentioned the light. Her face went pale. That house has been empty for years. No one's lived there since. Well, since before I moved here. I laughed it off, trying to sound brave. Maybe it's just a ghost, I joked. But deep down, I felt that familiar unease creeping back. A few days later, I was coming home from work when I saw a figure standing on the porch. It was an older man, disheveled and wearing a long coat. He had this wild look in his eyes, and my stomach dropped. I quickly ducked into my house, hoping he didn't see me. The next day, I couldn't shake the image of him from my mind. I told Lisa about it, and she frowned. That's strange. I've never seen anyone there before. Just be careful. Okay, so of course, I tried to avoid looking at the house. But then, a week later, I heard a faint tapping sound at my window. It was around midnight, and I felt my heart race. I glanced over and saw the man again, but this time he was much closer, right by my window. I froze. He wasn't looking at me, he was staring at the house itself, almost like he was waiting for something. I thought about calling the police, but who would believe me? Instead, I just backed away slowly and tried to ignore it. A few nights later, I had a dream about the house. In it, I was inside, wandering through dark, dusty rooms. There were shadows everywhere, and I could hear whispering. When I woke up, I felt disoriented, like the dream was a memory instead of just a figment of my imagination. Things escalated after that. I started hearing strange noises, soft thuds and whispers at odd hours. Sometimes, I thought I saw movement in the corners of my eyes, but when I looked, nothing was there. One night, I was sitting on my couch, half watching TV, when I noticed something strange. The curtains in the old house were drawn back just enough to see a dark shape inside. It looked like a person, but they were just standing there, completely still. I couldn't tell if it was the same man or someone else. I felt a chill run down my spine. That weekend, I decided I needed to get some answers. I knocked on Lisa's door and asked if she knew anything about the house. She sighed and sat me down. Okay, but you have to promise not to freak out. Apparently, the house had a dark history. Years ago, a family had lived there until the parents disappeared without a trace. The kids were found wandering the streets, confused and traumatized. They were taken in by relatives, but the house was left abandoned after that. Lisa told me people said it was haunted, but I always thought those were just stories. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening, it had to do with the man I'd seen. So I made a plan. I'd confront him. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but I needed to know what was going on. The next evening, I took a deep breath and stepped outside. I walked across the street, heart pounding. As I approached the porch, I could see that the man was there, staring at the ground. I gathered my courage and called out, "Hey, are you okay?" He slowly looked up, and for a moment I saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and shaky. "You need to leave." That's when I saw the emptiness behind his eyes, the way he clutched the railing like it was his only anchor. "What happened here?" I asked, desperate for answers. He hesitated, glancing back toward the house, and then whispered, "They never left. They're still here." I felt a cold rush of air, like the house itself was breathing around me. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and I could hear the whispering again, echoing in my mind. I stumbled back, heart racing, and ran home, slamming the door behind me. After that night, I never saw the man again. The light in the house went out, and the whispers faded. I eventually moved away, but I still think about that old house across the street. I can't shake the feeling that whatever happened there, it wasn't over. So if you ever find yourself in a quiet town with a creepy house, maybe just keep your distance. Trust me, some places hold secrets that are better left undisturbed.